A framed portrait of Kekkon Manabu stood inside a quiet funeral hall while his voice revealed that he had already died, recalling happier memories from his living days. His new workplace turned out to be a vicious black company, where a bald, furious boss screamed the twisted greeting Zosu at his exhausted employees every single morning. Zosu functioned as both a greeting and an all-purpose apology, and the workers were forced to chant absurd company creeds glorifying romance and scholarship while their boss screamed. The employees kept shouting rehearsed lines about harmony, sincerity, and boundless energy, insisting that impossible goals could still be reached despite their clearly exhausted, broken expressions. When Kekkon missed his monthly quota, his boss exploded into a screaming fit demanding immediate results, terrifying everyone until Kekkon barely scraped by and met the numbers. Despite achieving the quota, his boss remained furious about how close it had been, and Kekkon silently swore in exhausted anger that he could genuinely kill the man. Overtime became a constant burden, forcing Kekkon into the office even during holidays, joining coworkers who collapsed exhausted onto the floor after enduring endless grueling shifts, walking home sleep-deprived and mentally distracted from the relentless overwork. Kekkon was suddenly struck by an out-of-control car, and the impact instantly ended his exhausted life. Lying in darkness afterward, Kekkon admitted he never once enjoyed a single fun moment in life, questioning why he studied so hard for something so pointless. Confused about still having a physical body despite believing himself dead, Kekkon suddenly found himself surrounded by overwhelming brightness, shielding his eyes as the light grew intense. A winged woman descended from the glowing light, introducing herself as the goddess Iris and greeting him warmly, addressing him respectfully by his full name, Kekkon Manabu-san. Without doubting her claim of divinity for a second, Kekkon listened as Iris explained that his death had actually resulted from a bug in fate itself. Iris then revealed that under Article 7 of the Heavenly Constitution, he would be granted a second life inside a medieval fantasy world as compensation. She continued explaining that he could ask for a single wish, absolutely anything he desired, since the heavens owed him proper restitution for his suffering. Though Iris kept speaking at considerable length about the details, Kekkon admitted he barely listened to half of it, distracted by how unbelievably cute she seemed. He noticed everything about her, from her graceful curves and flowing golden hair to her gentle, hymn-like voice, deciding she matched his personal type perfectly. Overwhelmed by sudden attraction, Kekkon silently declared that he wanted to marry her, even as Iris casually mentioned he could master every kind of magic instead. Confused by her offer of anything, Kekkon watched as Iris displayed legendary rewards, including invincibility, an infinite item bag, and the strongest familiar in history. Ignoring every magical reward available to him, Kekkon instead demanded that Iris marry him and come along with him, and after a stunned pause, she agreed. Startled by his sudden and unexpected proposal, Iris reacted with wide-eyed shock and flustered embarrassment, marking the true beginning of their unlikely newlywed life together. Startled by Manabu's blunt question about disliking her, Iris clarified she simply preferred someone serious and sincere, only for him to panic and apologize instantly. Never having had a girlfriend before, Manabu admitted he had only studied throughout his life, prompting Iris to reveal she had already researched his entire background. Reflecting quietly, Manabu wondered whether his old life had truly been wasted if it managed to leave such a favorable impression on someone like her. Iris asked pointedly whether he felt certain about his decision, reminding him that as a goddess she could grant absolutely any wish he desired. Without hesitation, Manabu declared that nothing in existence mattered more to him than her, leaving Iris flustered as she scrambled to fulfill his request. Grasping his hand firmly, Iris agreed to marry him, and Manabu's heart pounded loudly, still struggling to process how quickly everything had unfolded. A goddess never breaks her promise, Iris reminded him gently, and Manabu embraced her tightly afterward, shouting yes with overwhelming joy and disbelief. Another goddess named Skuld suddenly emerged from a mirror's reflection, offering to handle the remaining paperwork so the newlyweds could proceed with their journey. Amused by Iris quitting her goddess duties for marriage, Skuld teased her senior mercilessly, while Manabu proudly introduced his wife to the surrounding onlookers nearby. Complaining about her supervisor's constant snide remarks, Iris sighed with relief at finally escaping such treatment, then apologized to Manabu for burdening him unexpectedly. Considering whether she too should tempt a reincarnated soul someday, Skuld watched the couple with mild envy, though she brushed the thought aside casually. Waving farewell, Skuld wished the newlyweds a good trip, joking that medieval hardships might test their relationship, before Iris shouted back with visible embarrassment, reassured once again that a goddess never breaks her word. Manabu still asked nervously whether Iris felt truly certain about this drastic decision. Blushing deeply, Iris requested that he make sure to keep her happy, her sincere expression striking Manabu as unbearably adorable in that quiet moment. Recalling advice about acting confident during important moments, Manabu promised enthusiastically that he would absolutely make her happy, addressing her formally as Iris-san. Declaring her intention to properly support her husband, Iris introduced herself warmly, while Manabu insisted she drop the honorifics now that they were married. Reaching out gently, Manabu took her hand as she agreed softly, and brilliant light suddenly surrounded them, signaling their imminent departure from this world. Stepping through swirling light, Manabu realized they had truly arrived in another world. Observing dense trees stretching endlessly across the unfamiliar landscape before them. Feeling guilty, Iris apologized for not wishing him a proper house from the very beginning, admitting she should have planned their arrival more carefully. Waving off her concern, Manabu insisted having a cute wife mattered most, causing Iris to blush and thank him shyly amid the quiet forest, suggesting she use goddess powers to relocate them into a nearby town. Iris explained her abilities worked for that purpose, while Manabu insisted she deserved proper shelter. Excited about finally becoming useful, Iris admitted that people who serve no purpose eventually lose their place, and Manabu felt genuine relief hearing her plan. Wondering silently whether she had struggled during her early days as a rookie goddess, Manabu watched her steady herself before attempting the risky teleportation spell. Chanting unfamiliar words, Iris suddenly declared holy teleport, though nothing happened afterward, leaving both of them confused about what exactly had gone wrong. Flipping through a hidden manual, Iris discovered that goddesses lose access to heavenly systems entirely once they leave heaven behind for good, apologizing for being useless despite her earlier confidence. Iris sniffled quietly, reasoning that a god disrupting the world's order with reckless power would cause serious problems. Acknowledging the situation felt somewhat risky, Iris agreed they could not simply remain stagnant forever, prompting Manabu to reassure her that everything would work out fine. Questioning what kind of sales work he previously handled, Iris looked startled, while Manabu insisted this predicament felt like nothing compared to his old job. Recalling how his overly aggressive company once sent him toward what turned out to be actual Yakuza territory, Manabu admitted he had eventually reached his breaking point. Standing atop a fallen log, Manabu surveyed the sprawling forest below and spotted a distant settlement, realizing they had genuinely arrived somewhere unfamiliar together. Iris rushed anxiously toward Katu after he tumbled into the bushes, and he insisted he could still walk despite having just twisted his ankle a bit. Iris explained that healing came from her own personal ability rather than heavenly power, since she carried the distinct title of Goddess of Healing, without access to heaven's energy. Iris admitted she could not fully heal his injury, yet Katu cheerfully declared that the pain had already disappeared completely. Overwhelmed by his enthusiastic praise, Iris grew flustered while Katu proudly displayed a makeshift banner proclaiming his love for his incredible wife. Watching her blush adorably, Katu called her over gently, while Iris nervously admitted she could not guarantee that monsters would never appear nearby. Katu reassured her firmly that he would handle any danger himself, explaining that he married her because he genuinely wanted to cherish and protect her. Touched deeply by his heartfelt words, Iris quietly processed the emotional moment before the two continued walking together through the rustling forest undergrowth. Iris spotted an abandoned house Katu had noticed earlier from a tree, and both expressed surprise at discovering the sturdy little forest dwelling. Stepping inside the dusty, long, unused structure, Katu apologized for borrowing it without permission. While Iris observed how thick the dust actually was, Katu joked that his skill at apologizing came from surviving his old black company. While Iris asked sincerely if using the house was truly okay, their newlywed life in another world officially began inside that small forest house, marking the true start of their unusual shared future together. After wandering through unfamiliar territory since arriving in this new world, Manabu and Iris finally located an abandoned house where they could settle for the night. Several sets of clothing for both men and women sat waiting inside, yet disappointment followed when Manabu discovered the pantry held absolutely no food. Holding up a spare garment, Iris noted that clothing and shelter were now handled, while the old well outside proved it still produced clean drinking water. Trees marked along their path would keep them from losing their way back. And Iris remarked that Manabu seemed surprisingly tough for someone raised in a peaceful country. His former sales company, Manabu explained, once dropped new employees deep in the mountains and forced them to walk 20 kilometers back to headquarters unaided, wondering aloud if fruit grew somewhere among the dense vegetation. Iris listened as Manabu recalled his old employer bragging that no trainee had ever died during that ordeal. A cluster of fruit hanging from a nearby branch caught Manabu's attention, and Iris identified them as Lyrica fruits, admitting she had studied this world beforehand, in a memory from before his reincarnation. Another goddess figure knelt with Iris, explaining that such preparation was never required, though. She hoped it would help him. Embarrassment crept across Iris's face as she denied being kind, brushing off Manabu's compliment even though her flustered reaction suggested otherwise entirely. Studying an entire unfamiliar world without any obligation counted as real kindness, Manabu decided quietly, admitting to himself that he had married an exceptional woman, without any real thought behind it. Manabu found his hand resting on Iris's head, reassuring himself that such affection was harmless since they were legally married now. Wide sparkling eyes and a frozen expression revealed just how caught off guard Iris felt, clearly unprepared for such a sudden and gentle gesture from her husband. Unfair, Iris protested, insisting he should say something before touching her like that, while Manabu stared back in genuine shock at her unexpectedly strong reaction. Rustling leaves nearby prompted Iris to shout a warning, and Manabu spun around cautiously, gripping a tree branch tightly as danger closed in fast. Tremendous force slammed into him without warning, scattering debris everywhere, though Manabu held his ground firmly against whatever had just charged straight at him, charging furiously through the brush. A massive, tusked creature revealed itself, and Iris quickly identified the beast as a dangerous anger boar native to this world. Once the creature lay subdued beneath his foot, Manabu stood calmly while Iris asked with visible nervousness whether the animal could actually be eaten. Several boar dishes came to mind for Iris, including wild beef, boa soup, basindo, and boa katsudan, which sent Manabu into an eager declaration that they should hunt one immediately. Video Manabu once saw claimed raw meat, organs included, could prevent malnutrition entirely, though Iris insisted fruit alone was more than enough for her. Another small boar scratched nervously at the ground nearby, and when Iris asked if he felt afraid, Manabu simply told her to stay back instead. When Iris asked if he felt scared facing the beast, Manabu's mind flashed back to his old sales job, remembering 200 cold calls made daily. Sweat dripped down his face as he recalled once stepping into what turned out to be a Yakuza office, mistaking it for an ordinary sales lead. Missing a monthly quota back then meant standing trial before the entire company, where his boss declared without hesitation that the only punishable sentence was death. Caught between retreating into disaster and pushing forward into worse danger, Manabu had once forced himself to pitch investment, real estate to men holding cigarettes. Standing before the charging anger boar now, Manabu grinned and declared it would become that night's dinner, dodging its attack with practiced composure. Iris watched him tumble across the ground from the impact, though she reminded herself that wild creatures naturally survive through sheer physical toughness and instinct. Clutching his side, Manabu insisted only one rib felt broken, though Iris firmly disagreed and urged him to abandon the fight for something safer instead. Refusing to give up despite the danger, he reasoned that surviving in the wild required results, while Iris quietly admitted his worried expression looked endearing too. Shouting that success waited beyond the impossible, Manabu straightened his stance dramatically, immediately regretting the movement as sharp pain shot through his cracked ribs. Guts mattered above everything, he told himself while pushing through exhaustion, recalling how both studying and sales work had demanded that same stubborn determination. Taunting the boar to come closer, Manabu ducked behind a tree trunk, though he quickly realized that losing composure in this world guaranteed certain defeat. Landing a solid blow at last, he reminded himself that staying calm mattered most, just as handling difficult customers back home had required patience and restraint. Bowing his head in gratitude before finishing the creature off, Manabu collapsed afterward, exhausted, as the adrenaline that had carried him finally began fading away, rushing to his side immediately. Iris promised she would heal him right away, her hands glowing softly as she knelt beside his battered body. Sprawled across the leaves afterward, Manabu joked that he had at least looked cool, prompting Iris to scold him for pushing himself far too hard. Hearing her admit that his suffering troubled her deeply left him momentarily speechless, since no one had ever expressed such open concern for him before. Memories surfaced of his parents constantly demanding he study harder for his future, insisting there was no room for softness in how he lived. His old boss, meanwhile, had treated him as replaceable, caring only about results and dismissing any concern over whether employees lived or died for the company. Lying there afterward, Iris realized someone finally existed who genuinely worried about his well-being, and the thought brought a small, quiet smile to her face, panicking that he might be more seriously hurt than he let on. Iris flailed anxiously until Manabu burst into laughter, calling out her name warmly. Overwhelmed with affection, Manabu blurted out that he loved her and begged her to marry him, clinging tightly while emotions surged unexpectedly through him. A tranquil heavenly room shows a deity gently eating while ignoring her surroundings. Unusual creatures and floating objects highlight the unique setting, close by. Kekkon turns flustered and breaks down in tears as he abruptly proposes marriage. Meanwhile, the deity continues her meal lacking worry. Observing Kekkon with a relaxed attitude, she challenges his absence of work while he stays inactive beside her. Their marriage is by then established, yet their everyday life feels uneven, with Kekkon still unsure about his realm. Soon after, the deity shifts her focus and gets ready to answer to a proposal from a respected leader. Her posture turns greater composed, reflecting a feeling of obligation. Although she often appears carefree, she clearly understands her responsibilities. Within a modest cabin in a distinct realm, Iris uses magic while managing daily tasks. Her movements are efficient and controlled, helping maintain their living room. The serene environment displays her adjustment to a greater useful lifestyle. Throughout that instant, Kekkon works to obtain their home by setting up protection against monsters during the evening. He stands alert with a weapon displaying hanging resolve. Together, Iris and Kekkon begin Cottage's stable existence in their fresh realm. Kekkon examines a beginner magic book he located on a shelf. The discovery startles him, as he understands he can understand its contents although being in a distinct realm. Iris reveals that in heaven, certain abilities allow them to comprehend magic naturally. Afterward, a freshly ready dish is rested on the table, releasing a full aroma. Iris gently states the meal, describing its basic preparation using salt and fruit juice. Kekkon responds with shock at the appearance and smell, showing each interest and excitement as he prepares to eat. Before eating, Kekkon collects himself and states, "Thanks," displaying respect for the meal. His posture turns intent, and his anticipation builds as he gets ready to taste the unfamiliar dish for the initial time. As the meal starts, each Iris and Kekkon consume together in a serene setting. Iris maintains her composed demeanor while enjoying the supplies, while Kekkon eats eagerly. Their joint instant dwells a hanging sense of comfort in their daily life. With every bite, Kekkon experiences the unique texture and flavor of the meat. The combination of sourness, saltiness, and richness departs a powerful impact on him. His response shows plain satisfaction, scoring this meal as a worthwhile experience in their new life together. A silent instant comes the meal as admiration starts to show. Cooking skills make a powerful impression, particularly since such abilities were not assumed from someone like Iris. While she modestly downplays her work, the response across the table becomes more intense, revealing hanging fondness and surprise. Gentle gestures and a bashful posture create a distinct atmosphere. Hands travel together as she dwells on herself, unaware of how her movements emerge. A gentle look and slight nervousness highlight a greater delicate side, adding to the charm she naturally carries. Strong emotions rapidly build, causing it difficult to rest composed. A flushed features and stunned response show how strongly the instant affects him. Thoughts become flustered, particularly as this practice feels new and worthwhile. Every little detail solely strengthens that impact. Excitement turns into available praise throughout the meal. Joy turns plain with eager eating and energetic actions, while a greater reserved response appears on the other side, displaying embarrassment mixed with happiness. Evening softly arrives, bringing a calmer speed. Fresh water floods a container as part of evening patterns, while the surrounding terrain rests under moonlight. A tranquil scene settles in, scoring the end of another day in their fresh existence together. Night settles in as a silent atmosphere floods the little cabin. After finishing dinner, Kekkon sits by himself, reflecting on the day. A dim candle flickers close by, scoring the late hour and showing the end of activity for the evening. From another room, the sound of fresh water can be heard as Iris washes herself. While he leans back and considers resting, considering there is little allowed to do. The serene setting makes all feel slower, yet a slight strain starts to build. Focus shifts into the bedroom where a basic bed rests against the wall. A glance with the window and the silent scenery highlight how isolated the realm is. Movement from at the rear a wall suggests Iris is about to go back, adding to the hanging awareness of the circumstance. Awareness abruptly turns plain. The cabin is little, and there is solely a single bed offered. This detail stands out greatly, critical the serene mood and pushing him to think about what follows. Concentrate stays on the bed, emphasizing the circumstance. With no alternative sleeping room, the silent night now carries a distinct kind of strain. What appeared like an ordinary evening turns into a surprising instant in their joint life. A sudden awareness hits as the circumstance turns plain. Sharing the identical bed now feels unavoidable, and the thought immediately shatters him. His expression stiffens, took between anticipation and uncertainty about what this instant genuinely means. Panic rapidly seizes control, and he clutches his hair while struggling to ritual all. Lack of practice becomes evident, letting him unsure how to work. The strain of the situation builds swiftly, causing it difficult to rest calm. Memories of his prior return, flooded with lengthy periods of isolation and work. A existence lacking near relationships departs him unprepared for what is happening now. Uncertainty builds stronger as he understands he has no practice to rely on. Annoyance mixes with uncertainty as he challenges his alone actions. A short instant of assurance from former now feels misplaced. Thoughts spiral as he tries to understand why he acted so boldly before. Although his absence of practice, from at the rear, the sound of Iris finishing her bath touches him, pulling him back to reality. Uncertainty returns as he wonders how to gain the front in this circumstance. With no plain reply, strain mounts as the moment he anticipated finally arrives. Fresh from washing, Iris steps out with damp hair and a relaxed posture. Gentle dwells off her skin, causing her appearance stand out even greater. A silent glance from nearby reveals plain surprise, as her presence feels overwhelming in such a little room. Uncertainty lingers as she tilts her hair briefly, responding with a serene and natural expression. Her identity as a deity is stated lacking pride or delay, as if it is something common. That basic response solely deepens the feeling of disbelief nearby her. An uneasy pause comes as she approaches and requests for a realm to sit. Room feels limited, pushing each of them closer than assumed. Movements become cautious, with delay noticeable in every steps. Each move onto the same bench, resting stiffly near together. Distance between them is little, causing every detail greater noticeable. Attention wanders into her flawless appearance, while strain builds from being so near. Mind struggle to remain stable as admiration builds stronger. Restraint starts to blur as feelings become harder to control. An instant of honesty surfaces internally, showing how strongly her aura affects him. What started as silent strain shifts into something more intense, scoring a turning stage in the night. Strain peaks as each sit near together, unsure how to work. A little movement draws focus, and uneasy reactions obey immediately. Her serene but curious look differs with his stiff posture. A softer instant comes as she searches down, lightly fidgeting with her hair. Uncertainty turns plain in her actions, showing she also does not fully understand what comes. The atmosphere shifts into something greater uneasy than demanding, with each side hesitating. Abruptly, the importance of the circumstance hits him all at one. Thoughts spiral as he tries to ritual what should occur after this instant. Uncertainty replaces any former assurance, letting him overwhelmed. A silent strain floods the room as Kekkon faces the deity. She leans onward with noticeable nervousness, uncertain of how to work. Shock overtakes Kekkon, letting him frozen as he fights to understand the circumstance. The instant lingers with each of them unsure about what comes after their sudden marriage. Seeking to regain poise, Kekkon organizes his thoughts and acknowledges the intent behind the circumstance. Resolve appears on his features, yet uneasiness stays. Even with awareness, managing the reality proves greater hard than assumed. Strain builds as his inexperience turns plain. Assurance fails him, particularly throughout such an important instant. Resting beside every other, each remains stiff and wordless, separated by hesitation. The atmosphere builds heavier as neither seizes a move onward. A change in time places Kekkon in a formal setting, now dressed for duty. Flustered, he admits his absence of assurance while facing expectations from someone guiding him onward. The towering scenery emphasize how unprepared he feels in this new duty. Abruptly, a sharp strike lands across Kettu's features. The force interrupts his delay at once. That impact departs no room for doubt, driving him to confront the circumstance lacking retreat. Kekkon is flustered as severe speech are thrown at him. The man in front of him criticizes his absence of assurance and dismisses his delay. Dangers obey, creating strain that Kekkon is unable to escape. Terror and uncertainty mix as he tries to endure the circumstance. Amid the intensity, a single idea is presented to him. Kekkon hears as the concept of courage is emphasized as something basic yet mighty. The message touches him clearly, offering him something to hold on to, although his uncertainty. Waiting tall, the man keeps to reinforce that courage does not require information or practice. The speech echoes strongly in Kettu's mind. That awareness starts to change his perspective, causing the challenge feel briefly more manageable. Strain mounts once more as a final warning is delivered. Kekkon discovers himself on the ground, shaken but still listening. The strain compels him to decide whether to remain frozen or gain steps. Unexpected clarity floods Kekkon as he welcomes the idea of courage. Determination erases hesitation, and he resolves to work although not entirely understanding everything. With that outlook, he prepares himself to gain the first move onward. Ketu touches out and softly holds the deity by the shoulder. Her features turns red, and her frame stiffens from nervousness. She searches flustered, unsure how to answer to his sudden steps. Ketu watches her carefully, seeking to grasp her response. His palm tightens briefly, but hesitation rapidly comes. Realizing her uneasiness, Ketu pauses. Each of them sit facing every other, the distance between them flooded with uneasy tension. The instant halts as he thinks about what to do other. Uncertainty seizes control once more. Ketu dwells on how scant they know about every other, recognizing that terror is still present. The deity responds nervously, unable to hide her discomfort. He starts to grasp that rushing onward will solely make things worse. A calmer method erases his former certainty. Ketu chooses to gain a move back, suggesting they press forward slowly instead. The deity replies with ease, although her embarrassment remains. The strain starts to ease as each accept the circumstance. Gentler atmosphere settles between them. Ketu notices her lingering sadness and understands she may feel inadequate. Wanting to reassure her, he chooses a gentler route. Instead of pushing advance, he welcomes a simple closeness, allowing their relationship to grow naturally over time. The two lie near together on the bed, seeking to rest calm in the silent space. Ketu comforts himself while remaining mindful of her aura. She stays near, still briefly tense, as they adjust to sharing the identical room for the initial time. Unexpected movement breaks the stillness. Their bodies change closer, and Ketu ends up against her unexpectedly. Her eyes widen in shock, and her frame responds instinctively to the sudden nearness. Instead of pulling away, Ketu stays where he is. The warmth between them turns more noticeable, lifting the strain briefly. The deity starts to relax, her heartbeat steadying as she builds accustomed to his aura. A gentle serene settles over them as they lie side by side. Ketu notices her warmth and starts to feel greater at ease. She replies by softly gripping him, letting the distance between them to disappear. Ease erases hesitation as each start to accept the nearness. The deity searches at him with softened eyes, no longer as tense as prior to. Their joint warmth becomes a silent reassurance, scoring a small move forward in their relationship. Gentle silence floods the room as each lie near together. Arms remain wrapped softly, creating a feeling of ease that was missing prior to. Warmth replaces former strain, letting each to rest peacefully with no delay. Morning gentle arrives, bringing a serene beginning to the day. She appears outdoors, by then readied and full of power. A gentle smile dwells her fine mood, showing that the evening helped ease her fears. Happiness turns greater noticeable as she states gratitude. Her look eases, showing genuine ease and contentment. That little instant highlights how much the basic nearness meant to her. Within the room, a silent awareness starts to shape. Observing her movements leads to the impact of maturity and reliability. Early rising and housework suggest a composed and at-fault wildlife. Uncertainty rapidly comes that assumption. A closer look reveals imperfections at the rear that image. Uncertainty sets in as expectations change, leading to a greater honest understanding of her real self. Annoyance bursts out as she admits she could not sleep at all. Her features turns red with shyness, unable to hide her feelings. Background terms reveal her origin, displaying that goddesses like her are born from a sacred supply, causing her situation even more unfamiliar. Recollections of her prior beginning to return. Existence among other goddesses appears structured and far away, with practice that keeps them separate from common experiences. Hanging up in that setting departs her with scant understanding of intimacy. Shyness deepens as she dwells on what occurred the evening prior to. Uncertainty mixes with disappointment as hopes clash with reality. Her lack of practice makes it difficult to ritual her emotions normally. Uneasy honesty emerges as she reveals her mind. A desire for things to continue differs with uncertainty. On the other side, serene agreement appears, displaying a greater grounded response to the situation. Uncertainty turns into disbelief as she challenges what occurred. Expectation of a wild progression conflicts with the reality of him falling asleep. That instant departs her confused, struggling to understand what should have come other. A confident atmosphere appears as she convinces herself that all is fine. That serene rapidly breaks when the door opens, showing in surprising sight. Shock seizes control as she responds loudly, took off surprise by his sudden presence. Shyness crosses as he understands the circumstance. An apology comes immediately while he tries to explain himself. Awkwardness floods the room as each struggle to recover from the instant. Interest erases shock as her focus shifts. Hands press against her features while she stares, unable to look away. Interest builds, mixed with uncertainty, as she tries to understand what she is noticing. Overthinking seizes control as her imagination runs too distant. Panic mounts rapidly, fueled by an absence of information. Her response turns demanding, displaying how unfamiliar everything still feels to her. Gentler instant comes in a distinct setting. Work is showed to focus on something useful, like arranging firewood. Magic is used to manage the task, bringing a little feeling of order after the former chaos. Focus shifts to the employ of magic as firewood burns effortlessly. Shock appears at how basic the ritual feels measured to normal methods. Soon after, a mistake turns plain when the supply of the wood is revealed, causing immediate remorse. A meal is readied, although the former trouble. Work displays in the basic dish, combining what is offered. Satisfaction comes as the supplies is enjoyed, creating a little instant of success. Happiness builds throughout the meal as nearness increases, physical distance lessens, and warmth returns naturally. That joint instant strengthens the connection, even if neither entirely understands it. Excitement seizes control as fresh mind shape. Interest mixes with feeling, leading to surprising conclusions. While a relaxed interruption takes focus back to reality, concentrate turns into something fresh. Interest mounts in the possibility of using magic personally. Determination builds as a fresh challenge appears, scoring the beginning of another move onward. Near their home, Iris takes up the idea of magic practice to Kekkon. A feeling of hesitation displays on her features as she reveals what it involves. Meanwhile, Kekkon pays near attention, showing each interest and worry. With certain uncertainty, Kekkon requests if learning magic carries danger. In response, Iris clarifies that it will not threaten his existence, although ache is unavoidable. Her explanation emphasizes endurance rather of risk. Gradually, Kekkon understands that the ritual will test his limits. The explanation keeps as Iris describes magic circuits inside the frame. She dwells on her alone practice at a practice school, remembering how painful it was. Hearing this, Kekkon compares it to getting a powerful physical blow. After considering it Kekkon chooses to proceed. He readies himself and removes part of his attire as instructed. Gently, Iris moves closer and touches into him to begin. Resolve displays in Kettu's posture as he welcomes the trial. Instant the magic is activated. A sharp response comes from Kettu. His frame replies to the unfamiliar sensation, displaying how demanding it is. Throughout that instant, Iris views carefully, surprised by the outcome. Their efforts continue, although the difficulty scoring the start of his practice. An unusual sensation crosses as Iris concentrates her might. Thin glass-like patterns emerge nearby her, displaying the activation of magic. In front of her, Kettu starts to feel power walking through his whole frame. Shock floods his expression as the flow turns stronger than assumed. Lacking warning, the power surges. A mighty force bursts outward from Kettu, forming a noticeable magic ring at the rear him. The unexpected release pushes his frame back, unbearable his control. Iris responds at once, startled by how demanding the response has become. Impact throws Kettu off balance, and he collapses to the ground. His frame trembles as the sensation keeps to spread. Iris hurries into him, clearly concerned by his state. Ache overtakes him, causing it hard to rest composed. The intensity builds rather of fading. Kettu fights as the power continues to press within him. His reactions become louder and greater, desperate, displaying how unbearable the ritual feels. Iris watches carefully, realizing the strain is distant greater than she assumed. Dark power starts to rise nearby Kettu, forming unstable waves. Iris immediately senses something is wrong and steps back in alarm. The circumstance shifts from basic practice to something threatening. Shock floods Iris as she understands the scale of Kettu's magic. She rapidly reveals that the ache comes from his unusually large latent might. Nearby, Kettu struggles on the ground, flustered yet beginning to understand that his energy is spring prior normal. Fatigue sets in as Kettu drags himself into the cabin. His frame feels weighty after enduring the demanding ritual. Within, Iris estimates how lengthy the ache usually lasts, showing worry as she watches him recover. Leaning against the edge of the cabin, Kettu tries to stable himself. Sweat runs down as he breathes heavily, still sensation the lingering effects. The outdoors air provides scant relief, but he remains waiting, showing his determination to endure. Ease slowly erases panic as the worst passes. Kettu admits with his look that he thought he might not endure. At the rear him, Iris says sorry repeatedly, clearly blaming herself for driving him too distant. Although her guilt, Kettu gestures that she does not require to apologize. Afterward, Kettu dwells on the practice while lying down. The ache lasted distant longer than assumed, proving how demanding his magic is. Even so, a fresh awareness forms. He has successfully taken his initial move into using magic. Interest erases terror as Iris reveals Katu's magic attribute. She determines that his might is suited for fire, intent he can employ it immediately with practice. Katu hears carefully, start to feel a feeling of excitement. The idea of using magic himself starts to feel real. Recollections return in Katu's mind as he recalls people from his prior. Suspicion and caution shape his mind, implying he has learned to judge others gently. That practice influences how he approaches this fresh realm and its unfamiliar might. Outdoors the cabin, Katu gets ready for his initial attempt. A huge rock is selected as the target. With concentrate, he raises his palm and collects himself. Iris stands at the rear, him observing attentively as he starts. An unusual clarity comes as Katu concentrates. He notices he can grasp new text, which allows lead him. The instruction to concentrate magic into his palm turns plain. Resolve builds as he gets ready to release the power. Power bursts onward with surprising force. Multiple projectiles shoot out at Wen, distant exceeding what he intended. Katu is took off surprise by the unbearable output. At the rear him, Iris responds with amazement, realizing his wild magic distance surpasses normal limits. Excitement builds within Katu as he understands his talent. For the initial time, he feels identified, and that thought floods him with motivation. Close by, Iris keeps to assist him, confident in his potential. Assurance pushes Katu to work rapidly. He raises his palm and gets ready another spell, focusing on the target in front. The idea of becoming a mighty mage seizes shape in his mind. With hanging resolve, he collects his power and releases it with no delay. The spell erupts with distant greater force than assumed. An enormous surge of fire shoots onward, unbearable the scenery. The ground shakes under the impact, displaying that his control is still lacking. Even so, the sheer might proves that his potential is real. An enormous explosion comes, filling the area with destructive power. The outcome is each impressive and threatening. Iris watches in shock, realizing how unstable his magic still is. Tears streamed down Iris's features as she covered her mouth, her whole frame shaking, flustered by guilt. She continued apologizing repeatedly. The depth of her remorse was plain, as her feelings burst out uncontrollably. Prior to this instant, an accident had occurred while opening the magic circuits, leading to a surprising explosion. Resting beside her, Katu gently treated her injuries. Even with his serene aura, Iris moved to believe she was at fault for everything. With her hair lowered, Iris asked for forgiveness when greater, her expression flooded with sorrow. Mind of Katu's ache weighed heavily on her mind, causing her desire she could undo what had occurred. In response, Katu denied herself blame and reminded her that she always puts others prior to herself. Gently, Katu moved, reassuring her, insisting that her compassion was not something to remorse. Unable to accept it at Wen, Iris shifted away while gripping back greater tears. Noticing her response, Katu stepped closer, searching for a method to ease her. Afterward the atmosphere shifted back to normal. Within a classroom, Iris appeared greater composed as others spotted her. Throughout that instant, the ringing of a phone echoed nearby, hinting that a fresh instant was about to begin. Iris bent onward, apologizing once more as she recalled the instant all went wrong. The mistake weighed heavily on her, and even as she attempted to explain herself, her tone faltered. Nearby, Katu showed on the circumstance, recognizing that those who gain initiative often end up causing more mistakes. A faint, trembling smile appeared on Iris's features, although tears still flooded her eyes. From Katu's perspective, her response sensed strongly unfair, as she blamed herself for something past her control. Hitting out, Katu softly gripped her hands and asked her to listen. Resting together in the silent woods, he carefully expressed his thoughts, acknowledging her emotions while trying to reassure her. Iris, still uncertain, questioned if her movements had brought him ache. Katu continued, describing that compassion often means sensation hurt more strongly. He admitted that even little pains can feel unbearable, yet that does not make one frail. Hearing this, Iris stayed wordless, unsure how to answer. But she stayed near, listening with stable determination. Katu joined his real emotions, expressing how much he valued Iris and how she inspired him to become better. In that instant, her expression shifted, surprise and feeling mixing as she finally started to understand that she was not alone. Waiting beside him, she reacted with shock, still uncertain of herself. Although her hesitation, his assurance in her remained firm, and his speech drove her to consider moving forward. With no delay, Katu displayed certainty, stating that he would keep going until it worked. His movements showed a willingness to endure ache if necessary. Observing him, Iris became confused, yet his persistence started to influence her mind. Looking at Iris, Katu identified her habit of managing all by himself. He admired her energy, but as well understood the problem it rested on her. Throughout that instant, he wished for her to be kinder to herself, just as she was to others. As he continued, Katu pointed out the work asked to employ magic, listing the strain it rested on her. His tone stayed stable, showing worry rather of criticism. Iris listened softly, start to realize how much he spotted about her fights. In a gentle instant, Katu reached out his palm and affirmed their connection as husband and wife. He expressed his intention to feature challenges side by side. Hearing this, Iris glanced at him with hanging warmth, her delay slowly replaced by trust. Might gathered in his palm as power surged onward in a violent burst. An intent look displayed his resolve to control it. Behind him, Iris watched carefully, her focus fixed on his movements as she stayed still, waiting for the outcome. Strain rapidly trailed as control became hard. Muscles tensed, and work displayed clearly as he attempted to keep the power stable. Every movement carried strain, pushing him to concentrate harder while driving through the instability. Unexpected change occurred as the flow of magic stabilized greater than prior to. Shock spread across Iris's features while she watched the change. Improvement appeared faster than assumed, and assurance started to grow alongside the outcome. Excitement replaced uncertainty as Iris reacted with broad eyes and flushed cheeks. Her thoughts shifted into what she had just witnessed, seeking to understand the reason behind such rapid advance. Feelings mixed side by side as awareness slowly formed. Resolve rose once more as power gathered for another release. Pride displayed in his expression while he readied to demonstrate more energy. Nearby, Iris smiled brightly, her former fears absent, as the instant shifted into something lighter and full of hope. An enormous burst of power erupted onward, shaking the ground as the impact spread outward. Grime and debris flooded the air, causing it hard to see what stayed. From a distance, Iris reacted in shock, uncertain whether what she witnessed was real or just her imagination. After the explosion settled, a worn figure remained in the clearing, breathing heavily. Torn garments and strained posture displayed the toll of ongoing tries. Even so, balance was maintained, proving that endurance had not yet reached its limit. Worry rose again as Iris noticed how numerous times failure had by then occurred. The number continued increasing, yet the work did not stop. Every attempt appeared to push more past normal limits, turning exhaustion into determination. Annoyance surfaced, but it rapidly shifted into steady certainty. Instead of offering in, belief in eventual success became stronger. Continuous effort shifted repeated failure into something worthwhile, shaping progress move by move. Ease and warmth trailed as Iris expressed her assist with renewed power. Resolve was no longer bore alone as she selected to rest by his side until the end. In that instant, persistence and trust came together, creating a joint route onward. Dark power gathered along his arm as he imposed himself to rest intent. Although fatigue and dirt covering his frame, control did not waver. A stable breath trailed, showing drilling for another attempt. Swirling mass of magic formed and surged outward with force. Might finally took shape as a fireball shot onward, letting a trail of unstable power. Shock mixed with ease as the technique activated successfully. The outcome hovered briefly prior to walking unpredictably. Uncertainty returned as its energy appeared inconsistent measured to former explosions. A quick response trailed, driving Iris aside to keep her safe from the unstable magic. Moments afterward, the attack crashed into the ground, releasing a noisy impact that shook the area. Fragments scattered while power burst outward in wild lines from a distance. Each watched the destruction, realizing how hard such might was to control. A faint smile appeared, although fatigue, displaying satisfaction with the advance showed. Strength in his tone reflected hanging assurance in using magic, even if only briefly. Observing softly, Iris softened, her expression flooded with silent admiration. Report revealed terms of Katu's prior, describing a life flooded with strain and sacrifice. Long ages were spent intent only on study, letting scant room for anything else. Even after gaining a job, that routine moved, shaping an existence with scant freedom or recover. On a screen, his present state appeared unchanged, still driving onward although exhaustion. Instead of complaining, work continued steadily, showing an outlook that declined to give up. Persistence stayed the solely route he trailed. Observing this, Iris sensed a mix of admiration and shock. Energy like that appeared hard to maintain, yet he bore it naturally. Measured to herself, such resilience sensed nearly unbelievable. Thoughts remained as she watched his movements more carefully. Determination displayed clearly in the way he continued walking onward. Even while weary, that stable manner allowed a powerful impression on her. Worry soon replaced those mind when she spotted his condition up near. Evidence of strain became greater visible, using attention to the work he had been hiding. Silent concern formed as she noticed how much he had been enduring. Iris lay near with a gentle expression, her emotions eventually plain and no longer held back. Warmth flooded the instant as she expressed her fondness warmly. Admiration and ease mixed inside her, showing how strongly she valued what they had formed together. Took off surprise, Kekkon froze as her speech reached him. A sudden surge of power trailed, bursting out nearby him as feelings overwhelmed his control. Even so, he stayed waiting, seeking to stable himself. Concealed among the trunks, Kekkon observes multiple creatures walking below. A stable breath allows him focus as magic collects in his palm. Cautious control turns his priority while he examines the distance and positioning of his targets. Power slowly builds, gripped back to avoid unnecessary waste. With the drilling complete, a fireball develops and launches onward. The compressed magic travels rapidly, striking one creature and spreading impact to those close by. Unexpected movement breaks the serene as the attack connects. Instead of a little burst, an enormous explosion erupts across the area. The force expands violently, tearing with the scenery. What was supposed to be controlled magic turns into unbearable destruction. Spring prior Kettu's expectation. Silence comes the blast as the wood settles. Fallen creatures and damaged ground remain as proof of the impact. Awareness sets in that his might is unstable. Afterward, a book rests in his hands as he examines gently, seeking to understand the limits he has reached. Within the cabin, the deity prepares supplies while observing him. Worry appears as she notices his state. While Kekkon continues focusing on improvement, mindful that his hanging energy is becoming difficult to manage. Under a basic roof, Kekkon dwells on his life in this fresh realm. Protection from danger has been secured thanks to the deity's magic, letting him to stay lacking constant fear. Time has passed steadily, and his circumstance has improved greater than assumed since coming. Everyday existence turns stable as Kekkon balances supplies from hunting with gathered plants. While resting and reading, he evaluates his state and understands his limits. Nearby, the goddess moves naturally nearby the cabin, maintaining a tranquil routine that contrasts with his hanging concerns. Unexpected distraction breaks his focus as his focus shifts into the deity. His poise weakens and his mind becomes unsettled. The serene setting starts to feel unbearable as he fights to maintain control over his reactions. Desire builds swiftly, driving his patience near to its limit. His awareness of the deity's aura intensifies, causing it harder to rest composed. The circumstance turns reduced about daily life and more about managing his alone impulses. Evening takes no ease, as Kekkon lies awake with restless mind. Sharing the identical room with the deity increases the strain he feels. His condition stays unstable, took between restraint and the hanging intensity of his feelings. Kekkon sits softly with a book, pushing himself to rest serene, his mind beginning to spiral, but he tries to suppress them. Resolve displays as he warns himself to rest patient and avoid acting on impulse. While reading, he searches for distractions and concentrates on information from the book. The deity keeps her routine close by, unaware of his inner struggle. Focus shifts between the text and her aura, causing it hard for him to concentrate. Throughout that instant, the deity experiences a similar strain. Her poise weakens as feelings beginning to return. What was when a calm atmosphere turns into a joint struggle, each hitting the edge of their patience. Over time, Kettu's frame turns stronger from his everyday activities. The deity notices these changes, and her awareness of him builds. Every little detail increases the strain between them, causing the situation harder to ignore. Eventually, the strain turns too much to manage. Each are flustered by their alone reactions, unable to fully hide their emotions. The tranquil routine within the cabin shifts into an unstable instant, where restraint is no longer easy to maintain. Iris sits by himself, reflecting on her mind with noticeable annoyance. Embarrassment lingers as she recalls her recent actions, seeking to maintain composure although her feelings. She fights to work normally, even while blaming Kekkon for disrupting her serene state. Uncertainty starts to return as Iris searches at herself greater critically. Problems about her appearance grow, and she challenges whether she is lacking in certain method. Close by, Kekkon secretly watches, uncertain how to answer to her actions. During that instant, Kekkon tries to rest intent, but his attention wanders. His thoughts become conflicted as he views Iris, while she shifts her outlook and prepares to work greater decisively. The distance between them feels smaller than prior to. A silent determination forms as Kekkon considers seizing the other move in their relationship. Time spent side by side has shifted his perspective, and delay starts to blur. He readies himself mentally, waiting for the right instant. Afterward, the atmosphere eases as Iris happily states a meal. The strain eases briefly, replaced by a basic instant of shared routine. Although former struggles, each remain aware that their relationship is slowly walking forward. Katu examines the meal in front of him, noticing the unique ingredients. The food appears full and weighty, causing him question its role. A silent suspicion develops as he thinks about the effects it might have on his frame. Iris states the dishes with a glowing expression, maintaining a serene and natural manner. Katu examines her response, seeking to determine whether his assumptions are correct. Uncertainty lingers as he keeps observing her actions. An unexpected awareness strikes Katu as he connects the ingredients with their feasible effects. His composure breaks, and his response turns greater demanding. The situation rapidly shifts from basic interest to hanging concern. She encourages him with a confident and expectant manner. Her look displays resolve as she watches him carefully. The strain on Katu increases, causing it harder for him to remain serene and composed, while Iris continues arranging greater ingredients with power and focus. Her movements suggest cautious forethought at the rear of the meal. As the situation unfolds, Katu realizes that everything has been leading into this instant, letting him with scant room to avoid what follows. Within the cabin, Iris abruptly shows signs of ache after returning from gathering plants. Her movements become unsteady, and she bows herself while trembling. Katu rapidly notices and approaches her, seeking to grasp what occurred. Although her state, she downplays the wound, insisting it is not grave. Resting near, Iris holds her palm and leans forward, emphasizing the ache she feels. Her look displays discomfort, but her movement suggests she is also seeking focus. The circumstance creates an instant of nearness between them. As Katu concentrates on her wound, the physical contact increases. Iris allows the distance between them to shrink, causing the instant greater intimate. The strain from former returns, now mixed with worry. He responds with urgency, prioritizing her spring being over all else. He supports her carefully, seeking to assess the situation, although lacking fair recovery abilities. His focus stays fixed on helping her recover. Afterward, the atmosphere shifts into silent reflection. Iris watches Katu as he keeps working. Although his alone difficulties, she understands his compassion and dedication, realizing that his actions come from genuine watch rather of hesitation. Iris abruptly loses control of her feelings and collapses onward, overwhelmed by everything she has been gripping back. Her restraint breaks completely, and her response turns straight and demanding. He fights to grasp the circumstance as he confronts her. Meanwhile, Iris steadies herself briefly, but the strain between them stays powerful and unavoidable. Waiting near, Iris searches at Katu with a flushed expression, unable to hide her emotions any longer. The atmosphere shifts into a decisive instant, where each are imposed to confront the situation head on. With no room left for hesitation,